Hey, how are you today? You're listening to Extra Healthy-ish, the big sister podcast to Healthy-ish. Both podcasts are from Body and Soul, and we've designed them to give you that little bit extra in your day for your mind, body and soul. I'm your host, Felicity Harley. Today we're talking about eating. Oh yes, all types of eating. Emotional eating, overeating, intuitive eating and mindless eating. But above all, we want you to walk away with a few tips on how to turn your mindless eating into mindful eating and really enjoy your food. My guest today is Pennie McCoy. She's a dietitian. She's had over 15 years experience in a range of practices from dietetics in hospitals to research and corporate nutrition. She is the head of coaching for the CSIRO Total Wellbeing diet online program. Pennie, thank you so much for coming on Extra Healthy-ish. Now, one question I ask everyone who comes on this podcast, how do you stay extra healthy-ish in your life?
My essentials and not negotiables for staying extra healthy-ish is making sure that I've got lots of veggies at my main meals, particularly my lunch and my dinners, making sure that I start the day with a good high protein, low GI food like my oats and berries. Porridge in winter is a good one, and overnight oats in summer. But physical activity every day, making sure I'm staying active.
What is your lunch? When you say veggies for lunch, what does it look like? I love asking nutritionists what they eat because it inspires me.
My key go-to is nice chunky veggies like tomato, cucumber, maybe some roast pumpkin from the night before added to a salad is one of my go-to salads, and throwing in some salmon or some tuna as a quick go-to lunch of mine, with some little rice or quinoa just to get some low GI grains to go with it, and occasionally some four-bean mix or something like that to get some plant-based proteins as well.
Oh,
That's
yes.
generally my go-to lunch.
The four-bean mix is so handy, isn't it? Just to throw in salads, and it's so good to just have one of those cans in your pantry.
I am all for quick fixes and less time in the kitchen and more time enjoying the food that I'm eating. So I'm all for convenience there.
Now, we're talking mindful eating today, but firstly, let's touch on the reasons why we often overeat or we eat more than we really actually need to.
Yeah. Look, it's an area that's occurring, I think, because of people being out of touch with their appetite and their regulation. It's a number of factors contributing to this. It's busy lifestyles, stress levels, needing quick fixes and eating on the run, that type of thing. But it's also over time becoming out of sync with understanding your appetite and what your body's needs actually are. So when you're trying to become more in tune with your body's needs, it is about becoming more mindful, and we'll talk about this along the podcast, obviously, but becoming more mindful about how hungry you are and in tune with how full you are when you are eating your meal as well.
Well, why do you think we've lost touch with this? I mean, I assume that one of the reasons is we live in an environment that's just screaming at us. It's called the built food environment that's,
yes.
Screaming at us, eat this, eat that. And a lot of it is not healthy. What are some other reasons?
Look, that's a big one. It's food availability. We live in a world where marketing and food is advertised at us constantly, and quick fixes and quick meals. But I think there's a lot of other factors. It's also looking at stress levels and that busy lifestyle and learned behaviors over a long time from childhood of, emotional eating is a big thing for a lot of people, and it comes about from dealing with emotions through food cues, whereas there are other healthier alternatives that you could be to use to help deal with emotions as well. Not to say that food can't be comforting. Food is certainly comforting and can be there for an enjoyment and satisfaction and all those kinds of things, but it's really understanding the stress levels and your triggers when it comes to emotional eating and using the right tools at the right time for your needs.
Well, let's talk a bit about emotional eating. I mean, just quickly, what is it and what causes it, and how, I suppose, can we overcome it?
So emotional eating is something that affects a lot of different people, but it's using food as a comfort for dealing with particular emotions. Why it comes about, is for a lot of reasons, but as mentioned before, it can be learned behavior over time. And it's really using different types of foods for comfort. Sometimes if you're feeling anxious, you might be looking for really crunchy type of agitating food. So it would be crunch factor there, thinking chips and salty types of things. Or other times it's looking for stimulatory types of flavors and foods. So really sweet foods or really salty foods. So often we're looking to uplift our mood through food, or feel comforted and full and satisfied through different foods. And as I mentioned, emotional eating is, food can be used to help make you feel good, but it's actually dealing with what the actual underlying emotion is and making sure that you've got some healthy alternatives that you can use to deal with those stresses.
So are some people more susceptible to this than others? I mean, is it based on personality or what's the deal?
Yeah, look, every personality type has their strengths and weaknesses. I work at the CSIRO Total Wellbeing diet, and we've got our diet types personality. So it's a really good tool survey. It's a quick survey that you can use to understand your eating personality. And there are particular personality types that might be more prone to emotional eating than others. But everyone can be susceptible to it. And it's about having those strategies in place. It's understanding what your emotional triggers are to start with. And then second of all, it's having some backup strategies to help you deal with that. So for example, making a list of, say, your top 5 strategies to deal with your emotional triggers, which could be picking up the phone and calling a friend. It could be going for a 5-minute walk around the backyard just to help your emotions calm down a little bit. It could be, doing a puzzle or a Sudoku or something like that to activate the brain and really understand what's going on for you, or distracting yourself from that particular emotion that you're experiencing at that time, and helping your body just reset and refocus.
Actually, back to your quiz, I found that really interesting when I did it. I think I was social, but it just gives you a good understanding of where you might overeat, or in what situation you might be in where you might be triggered to overeat. Absolutely. Or whatever that may be.
I love those, the personality, the eating diet types personality quiz, because it's a really great tool to understand you better and understand some of your personality traits and why they might be affecting your food choices and your health goals as well. So, I come out as a bit of a foodie as well, which as a dietitian tends to happen. Not surprising. As well. But, then it's being about creating some strategies to make sure I've got good food variety to enjoy that satisfaction, but also making sure that I'm planned and having regular meals over the day as well. So it's a great tool.
We'll be back after this short break with more from Pennie. To give our listeners some hope if they're suffering from emotional eating, is it healing from this, or what's the terminology we use? Can you push past it? Can you break free from this mindless eating and get into more mindful eating?
Finding strategies to help you with emotional eating. First of all, getting support. It's a number one cue. If emotional eating is a real problem for you, it's getting support from someone like a dietitian or your healthcare provider, number one. But you can break through, and you can work through it with practice and consistency with your practice. It will help you overcome emotional eating. Using mindfulness techniques are really important. Mindfulness techniques bring your awareness to, first of all, the emotional thing going on for you, but then also your solutions to dealing with that emotion. So it's about using some breathing techniques, so box breathing, becoming in tune with that emotion. What is it? Are you feeling tired? Are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Identifying that particular emotion. And then it's using those mindfulness techniques when it comes to choosing foods, eating slowly, taking time to chew and enjoy the food, the sensation of the food. Think the taste, the texture, the aroma of the foods, really being aware of that. It helps you to go from mindless to mindful eating. You'll find with mindless eating, you can just be eating a bag of chips and not even noticing how crunchy they are, how salty they are, or a bag of lollies, the same thing. But when you use mindfulness, you really taste the salt, you taste the crunch factor of the food, and you realize after a smaller portion, you'll be satisfied rather than going through the mindless bag of eating the lollies or the chocolate or whatever it is.
And you end up feeling crap afterwards anyway, because you think,
feel,
why did I eat that?
Rubbish, don't you? Those types of foods might give you that really instant satisfaction, but when you eat too much of them, you feel rubbish. So it's about making sure that you're feeling comfortable with your food choices, feeling satisfied when a craving hits and you do want something like the chocolate or the chips, that you enjoy it and you don't have that guilt factor afterwards because you're eating what your body needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So where does intuitive eating, I mean, this has been around for a while. I mean, it's a bit of a buzz term. Is this the same thing? Does this fit into mindful? Is it basically the same thing?
Well, it's a little bit different, but it is still fundamentally becoming in tune with your appetite in terms of intuitive eating, but also becoming in tune with your body's needs as well. So mindfulness and mindful eating is a core element to intuitive eating, and using something like the hunger level scale is really essential to understand your appetite through to your fullness level so that you can understand what your body needs and then learn the types of foods that will satisfy your body and get you from that hunger level through to that comfortable fullness on the hunger level scale.
How can we make better healthier choices around food when we're out and about in a built food environment?
Yeah, look, the first thing is to be prepared at home. So it's having plenty of healthy foods at home. Have your pantry and your fridge stocked with whole foods so that you can prepare some healthy snacks and be prepared and take those snacks with you when you're out and about in your day-to-day life. So it might be taking with you some fruit or a little bag of nuts or some cheese with grainy crackers, that type of thing. So you are actually planned for when that hunger strikes. But in our environment, despite having a whole lot of ultra-processed foods around and advertised at us all the time, we do actually have a lot of healthier alternatives that you can opt for when you're out and about. So it's being aware of what types of foods will help you stay full and hit those hunger needs and satisfaction needs when you need to, and looking for those foods when you're out and about. So here examples would be looking for some yogurt pots with some, it might be some muesli on top. It might be looking for some fruit. It might be looking for those little packets of cheese and whole grains that you can have on the run. Looking for those high protein, low GI foods will really help you address that hunger while you're on the run and avoid that overeating, and opting not for the ultra-processed foods that are quickly digested and might give you an immediate hit fix, but actually have that detrimental effect on your energy levels later on.
What about some ideas for healthy indulgences? I mean, if you normally do reach for the lollies or the ice cream or whatever, what are some healthy options?
Look, a couple of examples will be, first of all, being planned at home. So the CSIRO Total Wellbeing diet has got some really great recipes that are healthy indulgences and twists on indulgences that we would think would be pretty naughty, I guess, in the traditional sense, but something like some healthy chocolate brownies, which use black beans as the source of the kind of texture of the brownies. It might be going for some healthier little bliss balls that will satisfy the sweetness and have a little bit of protein in there to keep you feeling longer as well. But some quick fixes that you could have is something like some nut butter on fruit. It could be some berries. You think of raspberries and blueberries at the moment are so delicious and sweet, and they really hit that sweet spot that you might need in that mid-afternoon pickup. But other things could be some air-popped popcorn. It could be a couple of squares of dark chocolate. It could be some, almonds or some cashew nuts, or those types of things that might be a little bit savory, depending on what your quick fix need is.
Yeah, great suggestions. So overall, what is your top tip for turning mindless eating into mindful eating?
I've got a couple of top tips.
Okay, give me a few.
The first one is to become in tune with your appetite. Use something like that hunger level scale to really understand your hunger and your fullness levels, and use that on a regular basis to become in tune with your appetite. Then the second thing is make time to enjoy your meals. Regardless of if it's a main meal or a snack, it's sitting down and taking time to enjoy the mouthfuls when you can. And it's stopping to enjoy your food and enjoy those food sensations, tastes and aromas with every mouthful.
I love it. Pennie, thank you so much for coming on Extra Healthy-ish.
Thanks, Felicity. Thanks so much for having me.
Hope this chat with Pennie inspired you to make, well, better decisions around food. Turn that mindless eating into mindful eating. If you would like more tips on this, make sure you check out the CSIRO Total Wellbeing Diet Online program. If you want more tips from us at Body & Soul, there are many other episodes of this podcast, Extra Healthyish, or our other sister podcast, Healthyish. Download one of those or jump online at bodyandsoul.com.au. You can join the conversation via Body & Soul on Instagram or Facebook. Thanks again for tuning in, and if you have a moment, we'd be so grateful if you could rate, review and subscribe to this podcast. And until tomorrow, well, happy eating and stay extra healthy-ish.